When I did the video on the Google Pixel Fold the other day, I had a lot of comments saying that I was a Google Pixel hater, that I didn't like them, that I was a Samsung fanboy, and I only like Samsung stuff, but they don't remember, or at least maybe they don't know, back when I liked a lot of what Google did. And there were a lot of things and devices that I still have that make my rankings of my best and favorite devices ever, two of them being Pixels. In fact, the first two Pixels are still on my list of my favorite devices to use of all time, including this one here, the Pixel 2 XL. So I wanted to take a look back at this device when I think, in my mind, Google did a lot of things right, and how this device, the 2 XL, is better in a lot of ways than what Google is releasing today. And you can see here, we got Signal at the top, and it's running on a network of the partner for today's video, Mint Mobile. If you're tired of paying too much for phone service, then today's video partner, Mint Mobile, has a solution, including their unlimited plan, which is currently 50% off. $15 a month. Gets you great 5G speeds and coverage, and it takes as little as 15 minutes to switch. If you're using an older device, like today's video with the Pixel 2 XL, you could get yourself a physical SIM mailed out to you, or you could get on the phone with a live human being if you got a newer device and get yourself set up with an eSIM. So there's really no reason to not start saving money today. Go ahead, click the link in the description or use the QR code that you see on your screen. Does directly help the channel, but more importantly, it helps you save money. Thanks again to today's video partner, Mint Mobile. We're back, so let's talk about the 2XL today and what you can actually get in 2023. There are going to be some ways that you could still use this, Mint being a good one, of course, because I don't think a lot of networks are being overly aggressive kicking off your 2XL just yet, but it works well with data and all the rest of it. I had no issues using this with my Mint SIM as I test a lot of devices on the Mint network, so I have no problems with coverage or MMS or anything like that. So the number one thing is the display is something that I noticed right away. I was coming from the Pixel Fold display. I had just used the Pixel 7a display. I had just, been coming off a couple months of using the Pixel 7 Pro display. So I was kind of intimately aware of the shortcomings, especially in comparison to Samsung devices, of the Pixel displays. But that wasn't always the case. They've always had struggles with brightness. But as for the actual quality of the panels, they used to do a lot better than they do now. The display on the Pixel 2 XL is absolutely fabulous, even today. Back in the day, you had the issues with the kind of tint on it, the bluish tint. Mine had a warmer tone to it. It still does. And that's something that back in the day people maybe didn't like as much, but it has kind of this creamy tone to it. But the thing it has and it excels in, even more than Pixel devices of 2023, is how the saturation. The brightness isn't there, but it pops. It's vibrant. The colors look excellent on it. It's a 2K display, 1440p, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but these colors are significantly better than kind of the drowned out colors that we get on the 7a and on the 7 Pro and some of the more recent Google devices. So you're getting kind of watered down colors, not the saturation, but they used to do panels just fine, so I don't know why they got away from that. Android 11, I really wish it had stayed on Android 10. And that's something they do all the time, and it's something they do where they will give you that extra year of support. So it sounds good, right? The pitch sounds good. You're going to get an October update. Support for these devices ends in October on the anniversary of whatever year. It was 3 years at the time that you'd get. So this one was most of the end of its life was on Android 10, and it was running well, and the battery was locked in, and I just felt like Android 10 was really the sweet spot for this. You had gestures, you had a lot of good stuff going for the 2XL on Android 10, but then they kicked it over into Android 11. And I don't feel like, and because support basically ended the month that Android 11 came out for the 2XL, I don't feel like they had the time to kind of optimize it as well as they normally would, and certainly not as well as they had Android 10 optimized on the 2XL. So that being said, and that was for battery life. My battery life got significantly worse on Android 11 than it did Android 10. So that being said, their performance itself was surprisingly good. This has aged better than a lot of the devices that I have. Whereas some devices that are 3-4 years old are really showing signs of age. My Galaxy S10 Plus is not doing well for whatever reason. My Note 10 Plus is doing fine. My S10 Plus is not. The Snapdragon 835 in this guy, on what, if I remember correctly, 4 gigs of RAM, is actually doing okay. I thought that it was a pretty snappy experience. What I had been using on this, I had been enjoying it. I've had no issues performance-wise. It wasn't like I felt like a significant slowdown and stuff. The animations are snappy. The UI is lightning fast, as it was back in the day. Overall performance, you can still get away with this in 2023 and not have much of an issue. Security, okay, that's a different story. But now, Android 11 is still supported by the Play Store. So I don't know how long that's going to go, if it's another year or whatever, but your apps are still supported. So there is some level of security there. Don't forget, Android security patches are only as secure as the user. If you do something dumb, you're going to have issues with your phone. If you don't, your apps are supported as long as the apps themselves are updated, which everything on here I was able to update without any issue. You should have some layer of protection there as long as you're careful. So that's something that you should look at. Let's talk at build and design, something that they changed a lot. No wireless charge, okay, so they didn't have to worry about a glass back or being able to conduct that electricity wirelessly. So I like the fact that they went with this build. I had forgotten that we had lost a headphone jack on this device, that it was kind of way back then in 2018 that the headphone jack was already a casualty. I've got the Panda because you have to. Gorgeous Google design. They got a lot of that single camera. I love the powered accent button, the accent button for the power. That's something that they should bring back. Absolutely. Yeah, did you have the bezels and the 2 speakers being kind of in a weird spot? Yeah, you did, but you got used to it. And overall, I think people look back fondly now on their Pandas because of that design. So let's talk about the camera, because I'll throw up some shots here. This camera, for being that 12 megapixel sensor that they used forever, has held up pretty well. Does processing take a little bit longer than it used to, or certainly than it does on the modern Pixel devices? Yeah, it does. Okay, it's a noticeable amount of time. It's a few seconds before the photo processes, but when it does, what it produces is pretty good for a going on 5-year-old camera. So that's something to consider. Battery life, like I said, not the best in the world. You're looking at between 3 and 4 hours of screen on time, if you're lucky. And if you're using it in really intense usage, you're going to get less than that. You're looking at 2.5. So if you get a battery replacement, you just find one new old stock or something like that, you get a fresh one that you're able to replace the battery on, or the battery doesn't have a lot of cycles on it, you can actually get for a relatively decent price. You can have these for under $150, maybe even under $100 on eBay. You can get yourself a decent little phone. And is it my first choice? No. But it is nice to have used it again, get a little bit of that nostalgia, and be reminded of when Google used to do things right. Even though I wouldn't always agree with their decisions, I didn't agree with the amount of RAM in this at the time. I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions they made. But when you see what they do today and see where they came from, they changed the soul of the device a little bit too much. And they went away from something that was excellent and innovative and worked but was quirky into something that's kind of embodied the quirks, where it's just kind of all quirks now. And it gets harder and harder to see past them. Whereas this device revolutionized cameras on smartphones. iPhone, Apple, and Samsung were sleepwalking before this device came along. The portrait mode on this absolutely changed mobile photography. And that's easy to forget now with all the troubles, I think, at least perceived troubles, that Google's had with their devices in recent years. But there was a lot of history and heritage here for Google's on these devices, and I didn't always criticize them as much as I do. And there are plenty of devices in the catalog that I like the Pixel 2 XL. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.